Hi, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today is going to be an outstanding show. And the reason why, I'm a movie buff. And when I say movie buff, I clearly mean a movie buff. But something caught my attention in one movie, and I was wondering, could any of this be true? And the name of the movie is The Cobbler. I know you've probably seen it, but Adam Sandler and Jewish family trying to keep the family business going, makes a pact with a couple of individuals, almost like a Godfather sequel. Well, there's an individual that brought a lot of inspiration to that movie, and he is on the show today, all the way from Lakeland, Florida, the true cobbler himself, Mr. Jim McFarland. Jim, welcome to the show, big guy.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. Thank you very much.
Jim, I am excited. I mean, when we first started talking, I remember the first thing I asked you, I said, did you see the movie The Cobbler? And you was like, yeah, that's pretty much my family. But before we get into the actual movie and your role in it and inspiring how much of that is actually your family, tell the viewers a little bit about who you actually are.
Well, I'm a fourth generation cobbler. It's been in my family since around 1900. And, you know, we've been four generations training a fifth, and just didn't expect to stay in this trade. When I was young, I went off to college and wanted to do something else, and then dadgummit, I got sucked into it just when I thought I was out.
What did you want to do? What did you want to do, Jim, when you went to college?
Well, like a lot of guys, I like football, so I wanted to coach football, maybe at the high school level, and that's what I wanted to do. I'd been coaching for several years and decided I wanted to go ahead and get a degree so I could coach at a better level. And my dad got sick and needed my help, and I had to make a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And then he passed away, and then I had a good business here, and I was like, well, now what do I do? Do I close the doors? It'd be a shame to close the doors. It's a good business, but
Right.
yet, will I get to, I wanted to have an opportunity to try to seek out what I wanted, something different.
Right.
But at the end of the day, after seeing what so many teachers have to deal with these days, I'm glad I have my little cobbler shop. And I'd probably be saying that right now.
Jim, where you mentioned generations of cobblers in your family. How far can you remember? Because we're gonna get into the movie saga, because the movie, it portrays it going way, 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 way back. How far can you remember your family doing this?
Well, I mean, I grew up in it. I can remember being in a playpen in back of my dad's shop. And I actually have a piece of leather in a display case out there that I cut my teeth on. My little teeth marks are in the leather. Wow. So, as far back as, I can have my first memory is probably being in the shop. So, yeah, I didn't get to meet my grandfather. He was on his way to join my dad because they were opening up a new shop in St. Petersburg, Florida. Mm-hmm. And then he had a sudden heart attack and died. So I never actually got to meet my grandfather.
Wow.
But I worked with my dad my whole life.
Where did the shop actually originate at? The one that you can remember, where was it actually located at?
St. Petersburg, Florida.
And then you guys moved to another part. You guys always been in the Florida region?
No, originally Anderson, Indiana.
Wait a minute, where?
Anderson, Indiana.
I know where that is, right?
Not many people know where that is.
So you grew up in Anderson, Indiana?
I didn't. No, my dad did. And my dad also, that's where my grandfather learned his trade from from my great great uncle. My grandfather got married at an early age. He was 16 or 17 years old,
Really?
and yeah, and he was one of five kids, and his dad died just before he was born, so he was always getting in a lot of trouble. And he married the young girl, which was my grandmother, and her uncle he saw my grandfather was trouble, so he just said, if somebody don't teach this boy a trade, he's going to wind up, in a bad place.
Right.
So he taught him the trade, and he kept it going. He opened his first shop in Hamilton, Ohio, my grandfather, after he had learned the trade well enough to run his own store.
Mhm.
And from Hamilton, Ohio to Meridian, Mississippi to St. Petersburg, Florida, and now in Lakeland. So we traveled all the way down in like a big zigzag pattern.
Really?
but we've been in Lakeland, Florida since 1967. So I don't think we're making any more moves.
Is there when you mention cobbler, what exactly is a cobbler, and what is that detail in making shoes? Because when I saw the movie with Adam Sandler, and we'll talk about that in a minute, in your inspiration into that and how it relates to your family, he was doing a lot of soul work, but I didn't see him actually repairing a complete shoe or actually making a shoe. But you're telling me you guys do it all. Could you explain a little bit of exactly what your job is as a cobbler?
Well, I don't make. I have made shoes, but I don't make them. When you get into shoemaking, it's like bespoke, real custom made shoes. It's a whole different ball game. Different tools, different machines. A cobbler in the old days, and still today, a shoemaker don't want to be called a cobbler.
Really?
Yeah, that's
Why?
yeah.
Why?
Uh, Basically, because it can be insulting to them, to be honest with you. Not all of
Really?
them are like that, but I've met some that are. Yeah, but from what I've read and researched, cobbler would be back in the old days. Would be working on a street corner where they had cobblestone streets,
Okay.
and a shoemaker would send somebody to the cobbler on the corner of the street to get their shoes mended. You know, the shoemaker wasn't going to redo them. So usually anyway.
Is there is because your family's heritage is in the cobbling field.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to also do they also teach you how to actually make a shoe as well?
No, no, they don't. You just how to rebuild them, how to recraft them. I did. I have a very good friend that's a bespoke shoemaker. He's top notch, one of the best in the world. He's from Budapest. He actually lives in Pennsylvania right now. He was in Savannah for a long time,
Mhm.
teaching at the School of Design there. He's an amazing shoemaker, and I've spent some time with him. I went and spent 3 days and made me a pair of shoes, which took 3 days. It
Really?
was painstaking. Yes, everything's by hand. I mean, at the end of the day, your fingers are just curling up, cramping. Just because you're just doing everything by hand. You're not using too much machinery at all. It's 98% by hand. So it's pretty intense.
Something in that movie that I'm pretty sure you can relate to is when Adam Sandler was crafting and repairing shoes, like you said, by hand and so forth. And then all of a sudden he had to go back to his, which would be your grandfather's machines.
Yeah.
How important was that machine in that movie? And had he not knew how to use the machine, could that have crippled his ability to continue to be a cobbler because maybe his hands would have went numb and so forth? What are the advantages and disadvantages of working with your hands and then working with that machine that he had? And you can tell the viewers what that machine is actually called because I don't know. I don't know what
Well,
the
it
terminology.
I actually the machine that blew up in the beginning of the movie,
Really?
yeah, it had sparks flew out of it and it broke down, and then he had to go down in the basement to use his grandfather's machine.
Right.
I have that machine sitting out here in the front of my store
Get out of here.
from the movie. Yeah, yeah, it's just sitting 20 feet from me right here. Yeah,
Wow.
when the movie was over, they were getting rid of everything and they let me have it. Now the original little sewing machine, the main producer has that from what I hear. But no, I have it. And what that machine does is it stitches the soles on the shoes when you're putting a new sole on them.
Mhm.
And if you had to do that by hand, it could take 45 minutes or so. If you do it with a machine, 10 seconds. So,
Really?
yeah, yeah. So, definitely you can see just in that amount of time when I was talking earlier about shoemaking,
Right.
everything by hand, you can see why it takes 3 days to where if you have machines, you could probably do it in, you know, 3, 4 hours.
Now you know how to use that machine. Your family taught you how to use that particular machine from the
Yeah,
movie?
I actually have the same. I have the one from the movie in the front of my store, which I would be glad to walk the phone over there. But I also have another one in the back here that's the same exact model, same machine that we still use today. So the machine was made around 1936, somewhere
Mhm.
around there. So they made them till maybe the early 40s.
How
But
many
we,
cobblers actually have that machine? It, would you even be considered a cobbler if you didn't have that in your shop?
oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Cobbler's basically just recrafting footwear. There's a lot of people that don't have a. I know some that don't even have sewing machines. They just glue them back together. I don't know how they do it, as far as them not coming apart, because
Right.
some of these shoes are made out of man-made materials that you have to stitch them. But anyway, you really need to have two different types of sole stitchers in your store. So if you don't, then it's just going to make your job a lot more difficult.
What are some of the enjoyments that you get out of being a cobbler? Because clearly you said you wanted a different path, but the universe put you here.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
yeah, like what are the advantages? What are the parts that bring you happy, and what are some of the parts that kind of like makes you sad that you wish that you might have had another opportunity and really went after that other opportunity?
oh, well, you know, uh, you know, it's kind of tough to say. I was saying earlier, at the end of the day, I'm glad I'm here now. This is where I'm glad I'm at. Uh, it's brought me a lot of opportunity. I remember telling my wife when I made the decision to go ahead and do this, and my dad was actually, when he opened this store, they had about a $30,000 note, and it was back around 1981, and interest rates were high. It was like a 29 or 30% interest rate. So I had to
Wow.
inherit that and pay that off, which wasn't easy. But you know, I just told my wife, I said, if I'm going to have to be a cobbler, I'm just going to try to be the best one I can be and be different.
Right.
And we've been able to do that. And what I mean be different is we got really involved in the industry and our association. We tried to build a lot of you know awareness
Mhm.
out and now with social media, now it's so much easier to do than it was 20 years ago. And I think I enjoy this kind of stuff, what we're doing today, talking about the industry,
Mhm.
just as much as I like a lot of the things I do. Now, I don't like everything I do in here. Believe me, if you would have been in here yesterday, you'd have
Mhm.
said, Jim, don't take that hammer and beat that machine. Because that thing was giving me a fit yesterday. And some of these machines, where they're not working right, In fact, I confirmed that with a good friend of mine that builds those machines. I said, when this machine's not sewing right, does it ever aggravate you? Because mine aggravates me. And he goes,
Right.
it'll make you want to take a hammer to it.
Really?
So, yeah. So you don't just have to know how to repair the shoes. You better know how to repair the machines because there's no mechanics out there either.
I was
Maybe
getting ready to ask that. Yeah.
you have a few, and when I say a few, I know three in the United States.
Right.
Now, there's a lot of guys out there that know how to repair a lot of their own machines, but only to a point. Um, I've learned quite a bit, so I can replace most everything on all my machines. Thank goodness,
Right.
because it's very hard to find somebody that can do that. And if your machines go down, you're in trouble.
You have a good relationship with your father.
Yeah.
What what were some of the things that your father shared with you that still impact you to this day moving forward?
Hmm. Well, my dad was, a very religious man, and he tried. He was a very before he became, a Christian. He lived a very, very wild life
Mhm.
and did a lot of things that he really regretted. Made a lot of mistakes, and when he found out he could actually have a new, fresh start in life, he went all out. So he always. Excuse me one second. One earbud. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so he really tried to drive into me good morals, um, you know, honesty, integrity with the customers, because he wanted no part of his past life. So once he changed, he just I never knew the old him. He changed about a year or two before I was born.
Mm.
And he just to have a second chance, he just went all out. And he always tried to instill in me just character and honesty and just good morals. He really didn't talk to me a lot about shoe repair
Really?
so much. No, he didn't. I stood around watching cobblers growing up. That's how I learned more than anything. He didn't really stand with me and train me like you would think. I really learned a lot of my stuff. Just I'd play when I was a kid. I'd get bored and I'd go stand and I'd watch all the different shoe cobblers. And one day at about 15 years old, I just picked up a pair of men's penny loafers and recrafted them and went to the machine and stitched them for the first time. Didn't even mess them up. I just went around them and did them because I had been watching it for basically a good solid 12 years.
Mm.
So at that point, I pretty much knew how to do everything that, um, well, from what I had watched. And so it just came real easy to me, like, almost like when you were learned English, how to speak when you were a child. You don't remember what age you were. It's the way I feel with the shoes. I
Hmm.
really don't know what age I was when I started really kicking it in there and doing little things. It was like a learning your language growing up. I just grew up in it and it's just there. So
Did your father, as he got older and you got older, and naturally you're getting ready to go off on your own and do something different, but you're talking about generational wealth, no matter, and people need to understand wealth doesn't necessarily mean money. Generational wealth
no,
means handing a craft down from family to family to family. Did your dad ever come to you as he got older in age and asked you to take over the business?
no. My dad was 65 when he passed and I was 22, and he wanted me to go to college. He wanted me to do something else. He knew it was hard. My grandfather struggled. My
Hmm.
dad struggled. It was a hard business. You have to repair a lot of shoes to pay the bills. And it he just wanted me to have an easier life. but there was other things going on that made it difficult. And if I didn't want to live underneath all that stress and constant pressure of, coming home and the water might be turned off or the electric might be turned off. That's just not a fun way to grow up. And it really makes you, as you get a little older into a young adult, that you're just almost makes you scared that, when you see a bill, it's like, oh, I got to get this paid, or it just makes you
Right,
real
right.
paranoid. But I learned as I got older that it's a business like any other business, and if you run it right, you're going to do fine.
Hmm.
And what I did at an early age, when I was about 23, 24, I got heavily involved with the Shoe Service Institute of America, who does shows in different regions of the country every year, and started interacting with lots of good cobblers and a lot of them that are very good businessmen as well.
Hmm.
So I tried to learn not just how to be a better craftsman, but a better businessman. And
Hmm.
so I have to give um, a lot of what I've learned to my association, which has taught me probably uh, 75, 80% of. I'm always learning new stuff, always, but that we would not be the shop we are today if I wouldn't have been involved with those guys.
We talked earlier, and I told you I was going to bring this up because naturally the show is designed to keep that beast frame of mind, but to also educate and empower individuals. And I appreciate you taking your time to come on and share your family's generational wealth with me and the viewers. But I still have questions because I need to be educated at the same time.
Yeah.
You indicated to me that there are black cobblers. I've never seen one.
Oh gosh. Uh, I know. I know. I know a lot of them. It. My dad had, I don't know, 5, 6 cobblers at a time working in the shop, and it was always about 50-50. And I just, when you're little growing up a certain atmosphere,
Hmm.
that's just your normal life.
Hmm.
So I walk into, I don't know, 25, 30% of the shops I walk into are owned by Black individuals.
Really?
And they do, yeah, I know some that just are amazing, do great work and good job. Um, Guy from
Who
Jamaica.
are some of the cobblers that who are some of the cobblers that you looked at? Because you said when you was growing up, you watched
Yeah.
other cobblers. Who are some of those cobblers, and are they still around today?
Yeah, yeah. There's one. His name is Jackson. He's from Jamaica, and he's got that heavy Jamaican accent.
Yeah,
Worst dancer I ever seen in my life. By the way, I was like, man, you're a disgrace to your culture. You can't dance. Look how terrible you're dancing. I mean, and singing. His singing was terrible. Oh,
Really?
but man, he could repair shoes. But no, he's a great guy. He actually, when my mother passed, he actually performed the ceremony. The uh, the funeral service, and came back and did that. He's almost 80 now, but
Wow.
he's family. I've known him my whole life. And then I have a very good friend in New Jersey, Norman Randolph Shoe Repair. He's a wonderful individual. And we get messages and emails all the time through our social media. You would not believe the amount of cobblers that I get messages from Kenya and the Ivory Coast part of Africa, where they're working with their hands, cobbling with the hands, no machines. And it's just insane that these guys are working so hard and don't have these machines, and they talk to me and they watch us, and they're asking me questions if they could ever get. They would love to have a machine that's 65 years old that's obsolete. They
How,
would love to have stuff
how
like that.
long is there? How long is the span of a cobbler if he doesn't have a machine in conjunction with his hands? What if he has to? He or are there female cobblers too? Um,
Yeah, yeah.
how
It
long is
all
there?
starts to hurt.
Really? Like, so what, you might get what, 50 years as a cobbler? if you're just using your hands?
Um, I guess it's like anything else. You get used to it, but I think you're going to tend to get more arthritis and stuff when you're having to sew and do everything by hand. But I know a couple shoemakers that are getting up there in age that are still doing well. I guess
Really?
it's just going to be the individual. Yeah, yeah. I mean, as long as your tools are sharp and good, you're going to be fine. But man, I know guys that do this business up into their 80s and even 90s. They
Wow.
just don't want to quit. Yeah, they this becomes your life.
Wow.
And when I mean, like I'm in here on a Sunday working.
Yeah, I see
I'm
that.
not. Yeah, yeah. So I took the time out to take a break from doing all these shoes and but when I come in after hours or on off day, it's kind of like that movie, The Cobbler. There's scenes in there where you could tell, when Adam Sandler's playing that part, you can tell he's feeling the vibes of his family. And
Right.
and I have that same vibe when I come in here. I got a picture here behind me. It's my grandfather. On the other side's my dad
Yeah.
on the wall. And I'll come in here and I'll work and I'll look up there at them when it's quiet and there's no customers coming in, and I'll just think about them and I'll think of the family heritage and it just I'll just get this feeling of, it's hard to explain. It's like a presence that
Right.
is just really a nice feeling.
How
It's
much of that
unexplainable, really.
movie? I'm gonna ask you two parts of this question, Jim.
Sure.
And what part of that movie? I watched that movie at least 20 times, and I'm always seeing something that I didn't see before.
Hmm.
But do you, it's a three-part question. The first part of the question is, you dealt with so many shoes, and your father and your father's fathers before that dealt with so many shoes. Are there any particular shoes that's come into your shop or your father's shop or your father's father shop that has some type of story to it? Like, the
Oh
whole
man.
concept of that movie was walking in somebody else's shoes, but you got to be
Yeah.
careful whose shoes come into your shop.
Yeah. I over on my desk over here, I have 100 letters from people that write me stories about the shoes and why they want to get them repaired. Sometimes it's a brother that was lost in an accident, and his sibling wears the same shoes and wants to get them recrafted so he can keep them. Sometimes I just had a gentleman lost his son not long ago. It was horrible, but he wears the same size and wants to wear his son's boots. And
Hmm.
you read these stories and you touch these shoes, and when you touch these shoes, you can almost feel the heartbreak these people are going through. So it's a different kind of repair when you're repairing those types of shoes.
What
You're
part of
you're
that movie? What part of that movie? Give me three parts of that movie that clearly impacts you, your life,
oh
past and with your family and current. Because the movie, the movie was really great, and I get what you're saying. You can literally put yourself in Adam Sandler's space and feel what he was going through with trying to keep the family business, but still at the same time wanting to
yeah,
live his own dream.
yeah. There was a lot of similarities. Now I only helped with the set and help putting that together. I wasn't. I have a couple friends that were actually had little scenes in the movie, but I didn't stick around long enough for that. But well, the part that gets me the most is when Adam Sandler realizes that machine's magic,
Okay.
and and his mother always wondered where his dad went, if he just walked out, what happened to him. And she was hoping, she was dying in the movie and she was wanting just to see him one more time, have dinner. And so he takes a pair of his dad's shoes out of the closet and he goes and he recrafts them on that magic machine. And then when he puts them on, he looks up in the mirror and he sees his dad because he's become his dad, which Dustin Hoffman's playing that part.
Yeah.
And when he says, "Hi, Dad,"
That
yeah,
was scary.
that
Yeah.
that choke. I mean, yeah, even now, trying not to get choked up over that because when my dad passed away and I had to come in here and turn that key and walk in here by myself for the first time. And, I still use his tools today. And there's not a day that goes by I don't pick up his hammer and just say, "Hey, Dad." It's just that's one reason I guess I'm so close to my dad. I just don't know that I could ever leave this place totally to ever do anything else because we had such a wonderful relationship, and he's a big part of this still.
Mm, mm, mm. I appreciate you taking the time to come onto the show and take us down the journey of generational wealth, your love for your father, your love for your family, your love for wanting to keep us informed and educated on a craft that's been around for centuries. How can the viewers reach out to you to know more about your services and to hear the beautiful story that you just shared with me?
Well, they can follow us on just about any social media platform under America's Cobbler. A friend of mine named me that about 5 years ago. He'd always embarrass me when I would walk in his store. He'd say, "Hey, there's America's Cobbler." One day I was laying in a hotel room. It was pouring down rain, and I'm just brainstorming, and I was like, I got to come up with some kind of good name to market. And I was like, "Hey, that guy calls me America's Cobbler. Maybe I'll try that." And it took off. So that's what we use just for branding. There's a lot of cobblers out there that I know that do things a lot better than I do. We just use the name for branding ourselves, and it's worked pretty good. So America's Cobblers on TikTok, Instagram, americascobbler.com, our website. So there's lots of ways to reach us. Facebook's the same, America's Cobbler. So easy to remember.
Jim, leave the viewers with something that keeps you going every day, because clearly you're keeping your family's dream alive, the love for your father alive. I can see it in your eyes. Even that moment, it's funny, me and you have the same vibe, because that's my favorite part of that movie, where he realized, wow, I'm my father now. He's looking in, and he put on the shoes, and he looked at
Yeah,
the man in the mirror, and the man in the mirror wasn't him. It was actually him and his dad combining both together. Leave the viewers
yeah.
with something that keeps you going every single day.
Oh man. Um, that feeling that we just explained just kind of stays in my heart most of the time. And it it doesn't matter. The way I feel is it doesn't matter what you're doing. It if you have passion and good customer service, you're gonna do it well. But um, what comes along with what my job does is you've got to find a way to love and have a lot of love in your heart. Um, because some of these customers you have to deal with, you got to have some love, that's for sure. but and I tell people this every day: love doesn't know hate, and hate doesn't know love. And I think that love my dad distilled in me growing up, and him being an example of that, is what I carry with me all day to uh, keep me going, even in my bad days. I
Mhm.
always feel that love that he instilled in me. It's a gift. It's unexplainable. Some people know what I'm talking about, but if do something you love to do, something you have passion. If you're in a job that you hate, you need to find something else, something that you really want to do and care about doing. And if you can't, then man, just in your off time, try to do something you love and do to, you know, I don't know. I'm very blessed. I'm just doing something that I thought I would hate and regret, but yet, this is my part of my home, is being in my shop. So I'm very blessed and fortunate to have that.
That is totally awesome. Sorry about that. It's totally awesome. Once again, Jim, thank you so much for coming onto the show sharing a truly impactful story. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the true cobbler, the America's cobbler, Jim McFarland on the Andre the Beast Crayton Show.